What an interesting, innovative, fun idea of how to like connect people, learn a little bit of something, and practice all of our great communication skills all in like one event. So that is exciting.
Hello, it's John Bernatovich, president and founder of Willory and one of the organizers for DisuptHR Columbus. This is a continuation of our video coffee chats with influencers, support committee members, and general good people as we continue the story and momentum around DisuptHR Columbus. As many of you know, we've had to suspend our event as we work through the new normal with COVID and aggregating and conglomerating a bunch of people into one place so we can have the event at some point, which we will. We're just kind of being patient and waiting for a right, safe time to do that. In the meantime, we will be having a virtual roundtable with a majority of our speakers. They're going to be answering a wide range of questions in a short period of time to give you some specific recommendations and takeaways. So please consider joining us for that on April 30th from 4 to 5. It's a free event to register for, and there's more details to come with that. That said, I am joined by a friend of mine and a colleague and a business partner, Brian Fox. Brian is the founder and president and CEO of Nimble Learning Strategies. You can find Brian on LinkedIn. His after linkedin.com, it's /Brian David Fox, just like it sounds. And then his company can also be found on LinkedIn by Nimble Learning Strategies. That's NIMBLE, Learning Strategies, STASTRATEGIES. Do not ask me to spell on a podcast. Brian, welcome to our video chat. And how you doing, bud?
I'm much better now. I was already doing great, but I just love connecting with you. You're such a good, warm person, and I always have a good time when we chat. So looking forward to our talk today.
Yeah, me too. We have a great spirit. And so Brian is actually kind of an anomaly for DisuptHR Columbus. Let me just explain that. He's not on a committee.
No.
He's not a speaker. No. He's not a sponsor yet, but maybe as Nimble continues. Yes, we'll talk about that later, not in front of 20,000 people right now.
Appreciate that. No pressure.
So Brian is an improv pro. He did a training for our firm probably 6 months or so ago, and it was such a fun, dynamic time. And I've tried to support Brian as much as I can and encourage him to continue on his journey of business ownership and entrepreneurship around how improvisation can be impactful to people in a professional means. So he's done a great job with that. And he has offered to support our speakers in giving them professional advice, as he has studied on Second City and he knows a thing or two about standing up in front of people and having to convince them that they know what the heck they're talking about and can think on their feet. So Brian has been gracious to help us, has gotten to know many of the speakers. He's been participatory in some of the continuation of content that we have created as a means to give back to the HR community while we're on this pause of putting together the inaugural DisuptHR Columbus. So that being said, Brian, I'm wondering, I can see you're working from home, so who's keeping you company these days, and what's that dynamic been like for you?
First of all, thanks a lot for the intro, appreciate that. Huge supporter of DisuptHR and Willory and all the rest. So yeah, just hanging out with what we call our four family. It's me and my wife, Becky, who's a filmmaker and a film professor at Kent State University, who also has been working from home since March when they started to do distance learning. And our two boys, Jonah and Gideon, who are in elementary school and also doing distance learning. And so we've been, like many people who are home with their families, just figuring it all out and being, more of a chef, more of a PE teacher, math teacher, and supporting all the things that our great teachers are doing at their school. They've been phenomenal. So yeah, so that's what we're doing. That's who's keeping us happy here at the Fox household.
That's cool. And have you guys been kind of creating a normalcy and all that? Because I know, like, my wife and I, like, she said, like, a couple of days ago, she was talking to her friend, and her friend was like, well, me and my husband, we've been working at home together a lot. Like, it's kind of like a lot. Like, that wasn't always necessarily a good thing. And I know there's been an adjustment to that and our ability to not get out as often to separate. So
Yeah.
you guys doing okay and all that?
We're finding our way. I think, you know, there's like different levels. Like, it's the dynamic between me and my wife, and like, you know, we only have one home office that I usually use most of the time. Now we've got to had to share it more often. So we've had to kind of navigate that, like, you know, logistical stuff like that, but also just well-being, you know, checking in on each other. Yesterday, my wife had a bad day. You know, whatever, I had one a couple days ago, but, you know, try to check in with each other. But also, when you realize you've had the bad day and you've been the grumpy Gus, this morning, the first thing she did, she came, she gave me a big hug, and she said, "I'm sorry, I was grumpy yesterday." It's like, no problem. I love you. It's okay. And we hugged, you know, like,
Nice.
So I think just finding those moments where like you can just be vulnerable with like where you're at. And, you know, I know you've got kids. And so dealing with all the, like, what are they going through, and how do you be present to what they may or may not be able to articulate, and trying to help them through that. That's a whole nother like layer to this whole thing. And, you know, I saw something posted online, you know, on Facebook, from some teacher saying like, don't worry about your kids being behind. That's my job. We'll fix that down the road. Just take care of your kids, you know, like, and our teachers at our school have been, at the Littman School, have been saying like, if they don't feel like doing this one assignment, don't sweat it. Like, it's not a big deal, right? And granted, they're in early elementary school. They're not like the juniors and seniors who have to kind of deal with other stuff. So we're a little lucky in that, but so we're just navigating that, and we try to have a regular schedule, but we're also trying to be flexible with what that schedule looks like. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about how we're dealing with it here at home.
Cool. Yeah, you mentioned two things. So we had a recent conversation with Dr. Melissa Briggs, who's one of our speakers, and she said getting a D right now is okay. Right. Letting your kids be on their devices a little longer than you normally would in normal life, that's okay.
Yeah.
And not to get too personal, but probably about a month or two ago, Brian and I were at a lunch meeting. He mentioned your hug to your wife. So Brian's a hugger.
I'm a hugger.
I can attest. Because in the middle of lunch in a crowded area, when we could have lunch together, I was sharing some stuff going on with me personally about my ailing dad and some other stuff. And he just looked at me and says, can I give you a hug right now? we were in the middle of lunch, two grown men in front of 40 strangers. Just,
yeah, sure.
We hugged it out, and it was totally cool. I loved it. That was just, I'll never forget that, Brian, for the rest of my life.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
So glad.
Cool. So I know as a business development guy in your past life, and as a trained improv and an actor, you have a very unique background. And I wonder, why is it that you do what you do, Brian?
I love improv. Improvisational theater has been something I've been doing since probably my mid-20s, so 25 years, give or take. And probably 20 years or a little bit more, I've been performing and teaching improv. And I love the ensemble part of it. I tried stand-up comedy way early on in my career, and I was very mediocre at it. And part of what I didn't like about it was it's just you. It's just by yourself. And I really loved community and ensemble. And in the other sort of professional jobs I've had, it's always been about building community, building relationships, things like that. So that's one piece, is the improv, but because of how you have to connect with other people. And then the other piece, just since I was a kid, I've always wanted to help other people. I don't know, maybe that's because I'm the oldest, whatever. I just wanted to like help people, and in particular, help people. How can they be their best in relationship to other people? And I've worked in nonprofit, I've worked in public relations, but that through line is like, how do we better communicate, collaborate, and lead has always been, in some form or another, a through line of my work. And so then many years ago, I put those things together, the improv and helping people around relationships in context of business. And somebody passed along the other day and made me think of this. I don't know if you remember the old commercial from the early 80s about Reese's peanut butter cups, where like the guys they're both like at the old school headsets, and they're walking down the street, like randomly, the guy's eating a huge chocolate bar and she's eating peanut butter out of a jar on the street, don't know why. And they bump into each other And he goes, hey, you've got your peanut butter on my chocolate. You got your chocolate on my peanut butter. And then they start freaking out. And then they go, wait a minute. It tastes good. Two great tastes that taste good together. So that's me in improv and helping people. Like, I just was like, how do I put those things together? And I love it. And that's why I do what I do, helping people and having fun.
That's awesome. The first commercial that came to mind when you went back to the day is the old lady asking, "Where's the beef?" You remember that?
Oh my God, yeah, totally. She actually looked a little bit like my grandmother.
Is that what you were going to say? But I totally remember the commercial, and oh God, that's my number one go-to candy bar is the Reese's.
Right,
Reese's
so
stuff.
good.
So
the best.
So good. The peanut butter is better than the chocolate. The peanut butter and Reese's peanut butters.
Yeah.
So distinctly different. So anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. 100%.
I think that's a great story and an analogy of how you merge those two very unique and wonderful things together, and wish you nothing but the best. So
thank you, sir.
I know these are very unique and trying times.
Hey, actually, John, can we interrupt you 1 second?
Yeah.
Just for people who aren't familiar, they might be going like, well, how does it really help? So let me just sort of like drill down on that for a minute, because I realize like I'm in the moment. I know what works. You've done it. You know what works. But let me just say this, that the reason why improv can be powerful in the workplace specifically is because improv actors get on stage without a script. They get a suggestion from the audience, and then they have to make stuff up on the spot. And it's not just like ad-libbing and being funny, although that happens. There's an art form to it. And like in the art form, there's sort of guidelines and protocols and tenets and techniques. And so what I do is I sort of say, okay, here are the techniques of improv, what would help an actor on stage, and how do we transform that into something you can do, whether it's a one-on-one conversation with a direct report, managing up, dealing with a team, difficult conversations, strategy sessions, whatever you're dealing with in your work, your culture. How can you use these tenets? And just at a very high level, there's lots of little ones, but at a high level, it's really around how do you have acceptance, how are you adaptable, and how do you take action? If you do those three things, you can be successful in improv. And I think you can easily see that almost in any business situation, you can use those three things to be more effective in how you communicate, how you collaborate, and how you lead. So that's sort of tying that bow on that. So just so people who aren't familiar understand like how does that fit together? So.
Yeah, no, and I'll add to that. It's tremendous techniques that you can share and study and learn in a way to control your emotions, in a way to continue a conversation, maybe have one that's difficult, handle an objection from a client, in which you have a formula in your mind that kind of, like you said, A, B, C, and we'll follow that, but the words are different every time, right? The A words are different from the B words, from the C words, but you have this method to be able to think on your feet and say something that's improv in that regard, but it's not BS, or it's not coming across as not sincere. I don't understand what you're saying. So yeah, no, I think those techniques are paramountly important, especially now when people are under a high degree of stress, or higher degree of stress than normal, that they're easier to react to things as opposed to respond. So yeah, it was great work, and we'll continue to leverage your expertise, and so happy that we've been able to work together in that regard. So I know we're doing this now, this video chat, because we can't get together on April 30th as we initially had thought. We had sold out 250 seats in about less than a month, and we had such momentum in Columbus, and it's just, this is the way it's supposed to be. So we're not living off the past of that. But I'm just curious as to how COVID has impacted you personally, Brian, and your family, other than obviously the things you mentioned with the distance learning for both your wife and your boys.
Yeah. I think that, so two things. Personally, we're just having more family time, whether we like it or not. And I would say 99% of the time we do. We're actually like excited about it. I'm just interacting with my wife differently. I'm interacting with my kids differently. Not just the time itself, but sort of how we're spending that time. So that's just been awesome. And I think professionally, I just see that let me just say this, that, most of my work is really in person, right? I do client relationship stuff over the phone and occasionally video conference. Most of the programs that I've delivered, most of them were in-person programs, smaller percentage were sort of virtual learning type stuff. I've designed and delivered plenty of virtual learning in my time, and I appreciate the value of it. And I think it's an important skill. Even before COVID, we're filled with remote. You guys are a remote company, plenty of other people remote, but I think what's shifted now is that it went from like a certain percentage of the professional population that using web conferencing, Zoom, Adobe, whatever it may be, WebEx, to like everyone. And so I think that the people who are already used to it had a leg up to a certain extent, but I think my sense is that doing it even more is another level for them. But the people who are in the middle or at the end who've not really used it or used it very limitedly, there's such a steep learning curve, and you got to be quick and nimble about it. And I think that that's both the asset around that. The bonus is that we get a peek into people's lives in ways we wouldn't have, right? Like, I think more and more people are getting used to being casual. And so you'll see, I don't know, the people I have more loose relationships with, you'll see them in their kitchen or in their dining room, or maybe they're getting a cup of coffee. And so you're getting a window into the world that you would never have had a month and a half ago. And that adds intimacy, it adds relationship, it adds opportunities for conversation that you wouldn't normally have. So I think that that's sort of the upside. The downside is that we're starting to learn more and more that we really need to take those breaks from being on the screen, and can't have those back-to-back meetings. It wasn't even good to have back-to-back meetings in person before, but even more so if you're having these Zoom meetings or web conferencing meetings, you got to take a break, take your eyes off the screen, do some squats, whatever you have to do to break it up a little bit. Otherwise, you're going to go cuckoo a lot faster. So anyway, those are my thoughts about that.
I agree. And having seen you in person, you do a lot of squats, Brian. You're a fit
Huge legs.
fellow.
Huge legs. They're massive. They're probably about like tree trunks, really.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. So as it relates to that, I mean, it may be a good, he's doing them now. As a continuation of that conversation. So what do you see coming out of this as that new experience? Do you feel like, so let's say we went from a 20% number was doing Zoom to now, let's say 85% is doing Zoom. Then when we get past and we have a vaccine and people work back to back to somewhat normal, where do you see it falling? It's somewhere in the middle, more tending to more virtual, back to more in person?
I think it'll be more, but I couldn't I don't think I could put a number on it. I'm not that kind of betting kind of guy. I'm not like that kind of, but I would say it's more, but I think there's going to be, I think we'll all be savvier. So it'll be easier, because if we listen to what many of the experts are saying, this whole thing could be another 18 months before we get back to some sort of version of normal, and whatever that's going to look like. So I think that that's going to be, there will be more of it. We'll be more savvy by that point because we'll be doing it for so long. It'll be second nature. And I think like everything else, there's that pendulum swing. So, I don't know if you've seen this, but people are doing like, I think Jimmy Kimmel started it with, formal Fridays, where instead of casual Fridays, people are dressing up because they're at home and they're putting on their suit tie, whatever it may be. So I think there'll be some sort of, swing back to that. And I think longer term, I think you'll see people going back into the office. Even before this started, a lot of the things we've been doing through the 2000s of like the open plan where nobody has an office, the research is starting to come out that like maybe that's not the best idea. For people who have a headquarters. Maybe we do need to have some more enclosed spaces for people. Maybe we need to have people who can be coming into the office, coming into the office more often. So I think you'll see a little bit of that pendulum swing down the line, like, maybe 2, 3, 4 years after we get past it.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, so in that mind, and as we serve the HR community, and DisuptHR is really geared toward providing unique, creative solutions, recommendations to maybe age-old problems that maybe we can come up with a different way to make them better. What are you seeing, like the impact within the HR community and some of the customers or people you've talked with over the last 45 days, that impact on them?
I think the impact is really is around prior to COVID, if I was going through a tough time, depending on the culture of the organization I'm in, depending on my boss, depending on my team, I may or may not be sharing what I'm going through. And even if I am, it may probably be pretty selective. Again, depending on, I'm a pretty open guy, so I'm okay with that. If the culture fits, then I'm fine with sharing a little bit more about myself in an appropriate way, But I think a lot of cultures out there, that's not always acceptable or suitable. So that's how it was. And I think now we're in this moment where everyone is going through the same storm, right? In addition to whatever else you may be going through, we're all going through this, like, what's going to happen next? We don't know where the end is. We're all concerned about someone in our lives, et cetera, et cetera. And it's all everyone's talking about. So I think that gives us a commonality that maybe we thought we didn't have before, right? Mm-hmm. Because before, everyone has lost a parent. Everyone has had a sick kid. Everyone has fallen off their bike and skinned the knee. But so many times in the workspace, we weren't really talking about those things. And I'm not suggesting we need to have group therapy at work. I'm not suggesting that. But what I am suggesting is that we were so hesitant to kind of share ourselves before in many cultures, in the business cultures. And now I think that we have an opportunity to be a little bit more intimate, to share it a little bit more, and allow that to actually drive that relationship to be more meaningful. And when we do that, then we actually drive those results that we're looking for, because we get to know each other more. Like, from an improv point of view, the more I know my fellow improv players, I know what chess move they're going to make, sometimes even before they're going to make it, right? Because I have that intimacy with them, because I have that intimate knowledge and that connection and that relationship with them. So I think the same thing in a workspace. If you've got a team that can get more tight together and really know each other personally, it then unfolds in the professional realm as well. And again, I want to put a little asterisk. I'm not saying that we have to share our deepest, darkest secrets with people, or we have to cry, or we have to, I'm not saying any of that. But there is somewhere between all of that and where we were before, and sharing more of who we are as human beings, and how does that impact who we are as professionals. So
yeah, no, cool, profound. I appreciate that. And as someone that's done, creating learning curriculums and providing the trainings that you do within your business and whatnot, is there anything in particular that you feel like we can be doing to better support the HR profession and that community to give them, I feel like they're dealing with a ton, right? We've had a number of companies going through layoffs and all the complexities with furloughs and reductions in pay and the impact of verifying unemployment for people. And as you said, everybody under this same storm, right? We're all under the same storm, dealing with the same thing. And the message is probably consistent from one person to the other, the unknown, the fear, the anxiety, et cetera. So, and a lot of that falls on HR, right? We're in the people totally. Business. So is there anything from your perspective in the learning expertise you have in the improv that you can give as a just your own perspective of how we can help, what we can do?
I think that first of all, it's a really important question, because there's a lot of small businesses out there that may have like one HR person who has to be the Jane of all trades, and she's got to deal with all that, right? If you're lucky enough to be in a large organization, then you at least have some colleagues, a cubicle down from you or whatever it may be. But in either case, I think you have to look both within your organization and, even more importantly, outside of your organization, in your HR network. Those relationships are, like everything else, are more important now. Who can you vent to? Who can you connect with? Who can you share a laugh with? Because I'm also a little bit in the education space, I see so many memes and cartoons and videos about what does it mean to be a facilitator or a teacher at this time, shifting from in-person to video or digital learning. So what are the inside jokes that you can share that another HR person is going to get that the guy in accounting is not going to get? Like, having those kinds of moments, as well as sort of the just checking in and listening and having empathy, also all important. But how can you cut the tension sometimes, and in a way that fellow HR professional will get it, right? So I would say, like, checking in more, loads of empathy, and then, how can you add a little humor, based on what you know about one another. and even if it's not specifically HR related, right? I know you're a big golfer, so maybe I would send you an article about what's happening to golf right now. And hey, John, I don't know if you saw this, but just in case you didn't, like just having those personal touches with people, I think is going to be is equally important to the sort of the technical things we need to be doing around benefits and all that stuff, which is super important. But how can we help the human side of things? That's what I would sort of add to that.
Yeah, no, it's great advice. And it is interesting being a passionate golfer and having grown up with that and owning a firm that's in 100% remote work. Those two things are quite popular right now. So the questions, what are you doing? How you doing? What's going on from a golfing standpoint? Unfortunately, I've been so busy that I haven't had a chance to go golfing, although it snows every time I think about it. So it kind of puts an end to that idea.
Right.
So,
And I think also like, just to sort of tag on that, like it could be just a text message, right? Like it could be something really small and simple, or it could be like, hey, let's get on the phone for 10 minutes and just not talk about shop. Let's just talk about our favorite wine or whatever it is.
Yeah, that connection is important, and people, because we can't do it physically, you have to find other ways to do it to check in. So all right, Brian, we'll wrap up the questions in our conversation about, well, what does Disrupt HR mean to you, and kind of looking forward to what we have coming up on April 30th from a video kind of virtual roundtable with the speakers, and then what will eventually be our inaugural Disrupt HR whenever we do it.
Right. I'm looking forward to it. This is the first time, when you brought it up, it's the first time I had really heard of Disrupt HR. And so I started looking at other cities and their videos, and I'm like, oh, this is great, right? What an interesting, innovative, fun idea of how to like connect people, learn a little bit of something, and practice all of our great communication skills all in like one event. So that is exciting. So I'm looking forward to the eventual actual program. And in the meantime, I love the way you pivoted so quickly to say like, well, we got to do something. And then just brainstorming with the speakers, like, here's what I think, what do you think? And really getting something off the ground that I think is going to add value to people. Not only bringing people together, even via Zoom or whatever platform, that sense of community is important. And I think like, given some of the topics, I don't know, you guys released the topics yet? I don't remember. I don't want to spoil anything, no spoiler, but
yeah, we did have the speakers started to share some of that, and then right at the time we got kind of the law of, well, what are we going to do with the event? And the most interesting thing out of all this is, I think of the 13 speakers that we have, my guess is half, if not more of them, will change their topic from what it was originally submitted 2 months ago to what it'll be, fill in the blank of the date that we actually do this.
Right. But yes, and the topics that you have for April 30th, I think are some interesting things about like, what can we be thinking about now in this moment? I'm looking forward to hearing some of that conversation. And I like the way you're playing with the format and all that stuff. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. The most interesting part to me and why we decided to make that choice, Brian, is that I knew we were onto something in Columbus because it had a couple failed attempts for the concept, and with Disrupt HR being founded in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is its nearest neighbor of Columbus, right? News to you.
I didn't know
the
that.
Young lady and their partner that started this are from that area. And so Columbus tried to do it, and they just, for whatever reason, I don't know all the details, weren't able to pull it together. And then once we got involved and put our commitment to it, it was like, wow, like sponsors and committee members and people like you, and 250 tickets sold out in less than a month, which we were like, oh my gosh, we should have gotten a bigger venue and all this stuff. So then we had all this momentum and was like, okay, now it just goes away, just like every other time. And now I'm like, no, I'm like, no way. I'm not letting that happen. Right. And so being respectful to what Disrupt HR has built as a brand, it's an in-person, community-based, collaborative, 5-minute presentations that you do. My biggest concern is that we're a ways off. Like you said, could be 18 months. I don't know. Like no one knows until we figure all that to where that the government and health organizations say that it's okay for us to aggregate a bunch of people back together again. And then on top of that, are people going to want to go do that anyway? Because they're going to have been under this constraint for one year to 1.5 years or whatever the time frame is. So I didn't see any other way to do it. And we got a communication out from the founder of Disrupt saying, you know, no virtual Disrupt HR. Like, you can't do Disrupt HR virtually, like 5-minute presentations, the talk track, but you can create community. You can do happy hours. You can do things to continue the communication, which is what we're doing. But yeah, I think there was just too much momentum. And also, in addition to that, people need something to look forward to. I mean, it's crazy. You see my Brown stuff in the back. I've never been more excited for the draft on Thursday in my entire life. And I will watch more of the draft than I ever have in my entire life, just because, well, what else is there to do that's been live that I didn't know what the result was going to be. So, right. So yeah, so super excited. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being you and coming on today for our video chat. And I will end with, so on April 30th, we're going to cover a wide range of topics, things that have come in from the community around the best and worst adjustment you've seen to remote work, leadership success stories in these unique times, creating creative and meaningful ways to give back to the community, impacting our younger generation in the workforce as they go into a very unique time of trying to find work, emotional intelligence, how it's been impacted in the stressful time, that parental work-life harmony and how we make that work in a way, and filling in the blank. What do I do now that maybe I've been furloughed or out of work, or I've got this free time? So got a list of topics. We're going to let the speakers spend a short period of time talking through and sharing their expertise. I hope as many people can join us as possible. And until next time, we will see you on our next video chat. And Brian Fox, thank you very much for being a wonderful participant and a great friend.
I'm happy to do it. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Look forward to seeing you guys on April 30th. Take care, John. Be well.
Thank you. You got it.
All right. Bye-bye.